Hello, everyone. We are the Clap, and welcome to our project.
On to our main question. In a world where we each have the autonomy to decide what we do with our own bodies, including the decisions on how we treat specific illnesses or diseases, receive vaccines as a preventative measure, or opt for physician assisted suicide, how do we persuade others to prevent future incidents of disease, specifically gonorrhea, and mitigate current infections? Well, this presentation kind of delves into that question a little bit. So now let's start with the basics of what gonorrhea or Neisseria gonorrhoeae is. It's a sexually transmitted disease. It is an extremely common STI. Most people get it and they don't even realize that they have it because it is asymptomatic. It can affect the genitals, mouth, and eyes after prolonged infection and cause swelling and inflammation, and it is known to be very much antibiotic resistant.
Neisseria gonorrhoeae is a gram-negative diplococci. This means that the cell wall contains liposaccharides and a thin layer of peptidoglycan, which is why it stains red during gram staining. It lacks a true polysaccharide capsule but has several outer membrane components that enhance friability and pathogenicity. This bacteria grows in pairs, with each cell being round. As pairs get pushed together, the bacterial shape begins to resemble coffee beans, which is a very characteristic feature. Neisseria gonorrhoeae lacks flagella but contain pili all over the cell surface. These pili propel the bacteria to move one cell per second and are used in surface adhesion and DNA uptake. Growth and replication of this bacterium is interesting, as it gives rise to four cocci daughter cells instead of two. However, these daughter cells will eventually pair up, resulting in two diplococci cells. The growth pattern of Neisseria gonorrhoeae is perpendicular, meaning it grows in length and width. The growth time for both is linear and proportional to each other. Once mature, Neisseria gonorrhoeae will stretch and retract its pili, pushing it closer to target cells and adhere to the cell surface, usually to epithelial cells of the urogenital tract. From here, Neisseria gonorrhoeae either attaches to the surface of the sperm cells or physically enters the epithelial cells lining the cervix, allowing it to replicate virtually unnoticed.
Now, moving on to the genetics of gonorrhea. Gonorrhea is a polyploid bacterium with three known plasmids. These plasmids are involved in horizontal gene transfer. However, the ever-growing genes present in many bacteria has unfortunately slowed down the development of widespread treatment, just like for other STIs like gonorrhea. This has led to the development of antibiotic resistance, where antibiotics have a decreasing effect on the infections caused by bacteria, and especially STIs and STDs. Gonococcus bacteria is unique in that it has the incredible ability to take in genetic information from other Neisseria, including antibiotic resistant genes.
Gonorrhea spreads primarily through sexual fluids such as vaginal fluids and semen. It can be transmitted through different forms of intercourse such as oral sex, vaginal sex, anal sex, or the sharing of sex toys. Often, those who are infected do not develop symptoms up to weeks after infection. This is mainly seen in women, as around 50% are asymptomatic. When left untreated, gonorrhea can spread to the upper urogenital tract. The easiest and most convenient way to keep you and your partner safe is to use contraceptives. There are a larger variety, including condoms and double dams. However, if contracted, gonorrhea is treatable through the use of antibiotics. The most common treatment involves an injection of ceftriaxone or gentamicin with azithromycin if you're allergic to the first.
Alrighty, in this section, we will be talking about immunity. The first thing that happens is that the host epithelial cells detect gonococcal components. Once they detect these bacterial signals, they trigger a strong pro-inflammatory response that basically turns the immune system on. These signals quickly recruit neutrophils to the site of infection, which then swarm the area and engulf the gonococci, which helps clear the infection and return the host to a healthy state.
So, next, we'll be talking about healthcare and expanding access to preventative resources. Now, unfortunately, in modern America, there are a lot of structural barriers from preventing effective STI control, prevention, and knowledge. Some of these include limited clinic availability, high costs, inadequate insurance coverage, stigma, and unequal access. Despite this, there have also been multiple solutions that have been developed to combat these barriers. Some of these include community-based clinics, such as the Health and Health Clinic right outside campus that does not require insurance for students to seek basic health care, expanded health insurance, telehealth programs, which can help people who may not have a regular doctor but may need day of virtual health care, and there's also culturally competent care, which varies depending on each region and nation across the globe. And lastly, STI prevention cannot rely solely on individual behavior, but it mainly requires a healthcare system that removes obstacles and provides equitable access for all individuals to help control it. Next is sexual education, testing, and contraceptives. Firstly, in sexual education, it is extremely important that information is given out to the public about making safe choices and having access to necessary resources when they experience sexual encounters, whether that's with a romantic partner or a meetup or any sort of situation where intercourse or any sort of sexual activity could be involved. Also, due to the high transmission and asymptomatic periods that STIs and STDs cause, it's very vital for the general public to be informed about these periods. Going off from that, resources are a necessity, such as the increased access to contraceptives like condoms, dental dams, female condoms, and certain forms of birth control. There also needs to be an increase in opportunities for testing, not just at a college clinic, but at multiple clinics or multiple locations across the nation that helps reduce the stigma about STIs and STDs. They're more common than people believe.
In the US, every state and territory has a confidential STI reporting system. This is a voluntary way for people to notify their state health departments of disease. These systems are in place to watch large populations and recognize when an outbreak occurs. The public can be notified through the National Notifiable Diseases Surveillance System of any outbreak. Databases for sexually transmitted diseases are an example of STI mitigation that does not put anyone's identity at risk. Unfortunately, a large drawback of relying on self reporting in order to catch outbreaks is the risk of underreporting. Many people are afraid and embarrassed to share they have contracted an STI. The best way to break this stigma is through education and spreading awareness that these diseases are not uncommon and can affect anyone. Another issue with many STIs is that in some people they are asymptomatic. Many women with gonorrhea are unaware they have it. This may actually be helped by an STI database. This database could alert people to an outbreak in their area and give them an opportunity to get tested.
Some parents may argue that teaching sexual education in schools promotes underage sexual activity. There is a belief that talking about safe sex to younger individuals may unintentionally give a go-ahead to participate in sexual activity at a younger age, which will then increase the likelihood of getting an STI. This mainly comes from the fear that these topics will become normalized and therefore promote sexual activity. It is a concern that learning about sex could encourage young people to experiment with more sexual acts and other risky behaviors. Many parents prefer to teach their children sexual education in the comfort of their own home rather than at a public school.
The stigmas against STIs have existed and evolved through many generations. Stigmas are negative connotations derived from societal pressures. A common stigma is that you must be dirty and irresponsible to contract an STI. But the truth is, not everyone who contracts an STI gets down and dirty. There are many circumstances where an STI is passed between sexual partners without either of their knowledge. Stigmas are more easily combated with education and a good support group. Shame, on the other hand, is much more difficult to dissolve. Shame comes from the internal emotional experience that comes from believing in these stigmas. Shame is often generational, stemming from the fact that most values and ideals are passed down to children. While parents tend to avoid their children learning about sex education in schools, they often make comments that shape their children's beliefs in sex. It has been instilled in us, as a population, that contracting an STI is 100% the result of our actions. This oversimplified, largely unproven idea tends to outweigh the well established facts about contracting STIs because it is more convenient and easier to spread. People prefer the shorter version that does not cover all the facts over the well thought out, longer explanation. Shame is very powerful. It stops around 20% of sexually active high schoolers from getting tested because of the negative connotations behind it. Not every high schooler is sexually active, but imagine how much this number grows as they age. The shame associated with contracting an STI prevents many people from scheduling the diagnostic appointment. Some justify avoiding testing by saying not knowing is better, because it protects the mental image of themselves. But this avoidance leads to further spread of infection. Others argue that finding out won't help, but confirming a diagnosis is the essential first step to recovery. If people were more educated on how and why a sexually transmitted infection spreads, we could significantly reduce the number of people who are affected worldwide.
We have reached the ending now. Yay! So, in conclusion, the spread of gonorrhea and other STIs are a very much growing concern in modern medicine. Stopping the issue at the root through improvement of healthcare education and access to resources and warning systems is the best way to go to effectively control and prevent it. And there are other issues to overcome within each of the solutions, but something needs to be done to stop the spread of gonorrhea and other STIs first before we look at those other solutions. Thank you very much for watching.